Hello, welcome to learntocook.com. Today we're preparing a beef stew. I like to use the meat which is under what's called a lifter muscle underneath the fat that is on the prime rib. Now for a stew, it has to be totally submerged in liquid. We like to have a hot skillet. We want to salt using a nice sea salt, the meat liberally. At this point, you can also put some freshly ground pepper on there since it won't be exposed to heat per se. If you want to use garlic powder, onion powder, that works fine too, or your favorite seasoning salt. Some nice all-purpose flour. We're just going to toss. Our meat is slightly moist. It's nice when it's slightly moist so that it'll absorb a lot of that flour. The excess flour you want to pat off. Put that in a small bowl. So I like to use an olive oil or an edible oil since I'm not just searing the meat, the oil becomes part of the dish. So that's why I'll use olive oil for this preparation. You can use corn oil, any oil works fine. A non-stick surface, we're going to want to sear that meat, get some heat. I have an infused oil so it smells beautiful, it has rosemary, basil, and thyme in it. Well, that's getting hot, and this, in my little Dutch oven, or my big Dutch oven here, I have some fat back that I have browned up in a little oil. See that little fat back? It's nice to use that in a beef stew, gives it a depth of flavor. You don't have to use pork. I've also made some nice turned carrots for you, nicely turned into an oval shape to give the stew a nice appearance. Got some beautiful red potatoes that I'm browning in that fat back and that oil. And I have some carrots. I also have some celery cut up and let those brown nicely. I like to put those in my stew. This is definitely hot, right? So be careful. Don't want to burn yourself. Let's put those pieces in. Toss them away from you. And get some nicely colored development. Doesn't have to be blazing hot, but you want to be sure when you put the meat in the pan that you hear a sizzle. Otherwise, if you don't, it's absorbing oil, and that would be a bad thing. So got some nice color on all those pieces. They're looking good. So that flour helps. Gives you that color that you like. They're all browned nicely. And turn the heat off so I don't have a flashback or a burn or it doesn't flame up. We're going to start the cooking process anyway, so that's really nice. Now that the alcohol is boiled off, we're going to add some stock to that, some beef stock, or beef bouillon, or beef broth in the can works perfectly well. So we want our stew to be totally covered. So it's come to a boil for sure. So now I will cover that. I'm going to add a bay leaf. I'm going to cover that and place that into a 350-degree oven for about an hour and a half, and then to check the tenderness. Okay, with our beef stew, you can see the liquid has thickened from the flour, and the meat looks good, but it still has another hour. It's halfway through the cooking process. So I'm going to add my beautiful vegetables. As you recall, the bacon fat or fat back, some garlic, and then beautiful turned carrots, some nice red potatoes, and some beautiful celery. This is more or less an old-fashioned beef stew, which is really nice to make and can be served with mashed potatoes. Would be nice with that. That way the mashed potatoes can absorb all that lovely gravy or sauce. So I'm going to put this now back in the oven or finish it on the stovetop. The final addition will be the quartered mushrooms towards the end so that they don't overcook. Well, we're ready to take a look at our beef stew. We've made a beautiful old-fashioned beef stew. Let's unveil it. The steam coming off. Well, it sure looks moist, and colorful. Let's check some of that meat and see, is it tender? Look at that, breaks right in half. You know, someone or some people have commented, oh, when it falls off the bone, the meat's cooked. Well, if it's falling off the bone, it's overcooked. And if it's falling apart, then this beef stew is overcooked. So we want it to be able to separate it with your fingers or with your teeth very nicely. So I know you're going to enjoy this beautiful old-fashioned beef stew. And thank you for joining us today. See you next time.